respect somebody who is arrogant and who is indifferent to the needs of the people in the North Country. And that's what we have been living with. And the only reason that we don't have better environmental protections for the North Country is because the current governor has his foot on the throat of the Senate of this state.
Yes.
And he has prevented strong environmental legislation from going through. A number of people in this room and neighbors and friends across New Hampshire are not going to let that stand. And our biggest opportunity to make a difference going forward is this next governor of the state. And just a quick reference to Cinde. 2 years ago, we met Cinde at the parade in Franconia. And Cinde didn't know us, knew a little bit about, we Googled her and tried to understand a little bit where she was coming from. Early on, she started asking questions about what's this landfill fight all about. And she dug in, and she kept asking questions. In fact, the questions turned into counseling, and she gave us very good judgment on how we might amplify our message. And she's been engaged in that ever since. So Cindy's going to want to talk. The governor's got a lot of issues beyond the landfill, and I'm sure she's going to talk about reproductive rights and public education and a bunch of things that have to get done. But I can tell you from our standpoint, and so many of you being here tonight, we need a voice that represents all of New Hampshire, and specifically we need a strong voice that's going to protect the best interests of the North Country, not one company or one industry that will never stand up and do the right thing for the people up here. So we're hoping that, first of all, thank you for your being here and thank you for your contributions. But this fight is long from over. The primary is in September and the election is at the end of the year. And, Cinde needs our help financially. I'm the first one to say I was guilty. I voted in every election, but I never get out there and spoke my mind and tried to influence where things go. We can't do that anymore. The North Country needs to stand up, and hopefully tonight you will feel like I do that Cinde Warmington should be the next governor of the state. So we're back here.
Thank you, Wayne, and thank you, Nancy, for organizing this event. Thank you, Wayne, really, for answering all my relentless questions back 2 years ago. And Wayne came to my office with a group of people to talk about this landfill. And I remember at the time saying to myself, no one's going to care about a landfill in a town in the North Country they've never heard of, right? Most of the people in the state aren't even it's not going to register with them. And as he started to talk about it, he told me about leachate. And my question was, what happens to the leachate? And they said, well, they pull it off the landfill, trucks full of it every day, and put it on the highway and truck it downstream. And right now they're dumping it in Concord in the wastewater treatment facility. They don't have any way to filter the PFAS out of it, so they just dump it into the river. Or they put it in a sludge pit and scoop it up and bring it back up here after it dries out, put it back in the landfill. And I said, well, there is your secret, right? Leachate is the way that you talk about this, because that's affecting everyone. We're spreading PFAS all around our state. And we've really been talking, and leachate, and we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it has become a huge issue of, we don't know what to do with it. At the last council meeting, I was just asking, what are they going to do with it? And I was told by DES, well, I think they're going to treat it on the site. We'll see, right? So, I'm Cinde Warmington, and many of you know me as your executive counselor. I am, for the last 4 years, the only Democrat on the executive council. And I have been fighting for everything that we believe in, all by myself at the executive council. And if you haven't seen my TV ad, that's just an example of what happens week after week at the executive council. And now I am running for governor because Every single Granite Stater deserves the opportunity to thrive, and I can see from the executive council table how those opportunities have been taken away and how they can be given back to the people of our state. So the essence of who we are as a country is that no matter how humble your beginnings, you can work hard and build a better future for yourself and for your family. That's it, right? That's the promise. And that's my story, and I bet it's a story that sounds familiar to a lot of you. So I grew up, when I was young, my dad worked in a shipyard. My mom waited tables to make ends meet. They had 4 kids in 5 years. That's sinking. And yet they were still able to buy a small house, put a roof over our heads and feed us, clothe us. I got a great public school education. I was the first one in my family to ever go to college. But when I was a teenager, my family went bankrupt. And my dad, who was a Korean War veteran, came home from that war with scars, both seen and unseen, and he struggled with alcoholism his entire adult life. And we went bankrupt at a time, our family went bankrupt, at a time I was 15 years old and stepped up to really take over and help with the family finances, went to work, and by 17 was financially independent. So I know when I talk about the need for housing and the fact that families can't make ends meet, I know what that means. I know what that means to a family. And so when I'm advocating for affordable housing, when I see that young people today don't have that opportunity, they just can't make ends meet. The cost of housing is sky high, childcare, the energy costs, food costs, everything is so sky high, people just can't make ends meet anymore. And my thinking is we have to be making decisions through the lens of that family, that working family. That has to be the perspective that we take to the corner office, is what helps the working families of our state, helps our state. And that's how we keep the promise. Affordable housing, when the governor brought $100 million of affordable housing money to the executive council, it didn't have a single word about affordable in there. So I picked up the phone and I called my other councilors, and I said, this isn't gonna work in my district, it's not gonna work in your district either. They said, you take the lead. I did. I started fighting with Governor Sununu. That's just typical council meeting. And then they all started piping up and asking their questions and concerns. And he realized, oh, I don't have any votes here. And he had to take it back, put guardrails around that, and we're building thousands of affordable housing units across the state right now, today. But the state can't build our way out of this. We need private development involved in this. And I have been working with private developers across the state to say, why aren't you building? And they're telling me zoning. And so we're gonna have to talk about that and give the incentives we need for communities to build the housing we need and change the narrative really around housing so people realize that it's not a not in my backyard situation here. The people you're keeping out of your backyard are your kids and your grandkids and your police officers, your firefighters and your nurses, teachers. So it's a key issue that has gone neglected in Concord. When I got on the executive council and I spotted this as a concern, I went looking around. Who is it that's accountable in Concord for how many housing units we have? Guess how many people in Concord are responsible for how many housing units we have? Zero. So no wonder we're going to be 60,000 units behind by 2030. The other thing that you've all seen me fighting for on the executive council is reproductive rights, right? It's just me. I am the only person in the room standing up to protect the rights of every single person in our state to make their own reproductive rights. Governor Sununu or Kelly Ayotte or any other politician helping us make those are going to get rid of this abortion ban and in its place, put in place protections to access safe and legal abortion in our state. And the assault on public education, that's just me against Frank Edelblut, right? The only person in the room standing up and saying, hey, taxpayer dollars belong in our public schools. You have no right to be taking those taxpayer dollars and diverting them away to private schools and religious schools and schools that are taking away the next generation's shot at the future, right? We're going to get a new commissioner of education. Someone who actually believes in public education. And truly what I have to say about that is that Frank Edelblut's term is up 2 months after I take office. The environment. I released our clean energy plan, but we truly have a governor, you all get this, right, who is hostile towards energy efficiency, hostile towards renewable energy, and has left us behind. You know, we are a donut hole for EV charging stations. Other states around us who are preparing for the change that is coming in the electrification of our transportation sector, and we are being left behind. And we're not just being left behind on the ability to generate electricity with a diversified energy portfolio. We're being left behind on all the jobs that come with that, right? All that economic opportunity that other states are taking from us. And New Hampshire is better than that. We are a better place to live and a better place to work, and we should be the ones competing and leading in the clean energy economy and in those clean energy jobs. So, I just want to take a little bit of time to talk about the North Country. So after I had several meetings with Wayne and company, Dana and others, I went back to the Executive Council to start advocating on this issue and really educating people about what we are talking about with an additional landfill, the potential contamination of Forest Lake, the leachate problem, which now that the federal government has issued some PFAS standards, and they are going to issue PFAS standards on the level of PFAS that can go out from wastewater treatment facilities, it is going to make it very difficult to dispose of that leachate any place in the state. And everyone's going to have to be saying, what are we doing with this leachate? So it's a timely topic. We just have a bill that's getting to the legislature now that's trying to remove PFAS from certain consumer products. We need to keep moving in that direction, but I gotta tell you something so frustrating. We have a law in our state that prohibits certain toxins in packaging because we don't want those toxins in our landfill. So we don't want them to end up in our drinking water, right? So we have that law in our state. And guess what? We don't require states that dump their trash here to have the same law. So what sense does that make? It's nonsensical. Our policy around this is just got to be changed. And we need to focus on making sure we are protecting the water in our state, clean water and clean air, and protecting the safety of our people in our state. I have so many more issues, and I'm happy to take questions on any issue you want to talk about, but I want to get to this question. You have a choice in this election, so why me? So we'll start with, I am in the executive branch of government. This is where the job of governor is. In the Executive Council, we see everything that comes in on the executive branch side of the state. He can't approve a contract over $10,000 without our approval. He can't approve a nomination for anything without our approval. And so I know state government. I work with the legislature, the governor's office, the executive council, and the congressional delegation. I will not spend my first term trying to find my way around the State House. Maybe most importantly, I appointees until their terms are up. Some of them are going to run for the whole first two years, right, of the term. And, you know, these people are all Sununu appointees. They could be working with me, but they could be working against me. They have literally been working with me for years. They trust me. They know that I will never ambush them at a council meeting. I will never seek to embarrass them. I will never unnecessarily politicize their issue. And I will roll up my sleeves and get to work for the people of our state. So these folks will be working with me, and that is critically important. The other thing is, I know the state. I have represented 97 of our cities and towns, and 8 out of our 10 counties. North, south, east, west. I know the issues of the fishermen and the farmers, and I know the issues of students and teachers and big businesses and large businesses. I know the issues of Cheshire County and Grafton County and Coos County and all of the counties of our state, because this is a job where we handle issues that are statewide issues. In the North Country in particular, I've been focused on access to emergency medical services. It is really a critical point here. I have been focused on broadband issues. I have been focused on flooding issues. I've been focused on crop loss issues. All of the issues across our state, and in particular, some of the economic issues of the North Country. And then next is, you know, probably the biggest question you might have. Who can beat Kelly Ayotte? Right? Fundamentally, that's it. Who can beat Kelly Ayotte? Well, whoever is going to beat Kelly Ayotte needs to be able to stand on that stage and go toe-to-toe with Kelly Ayotte in a debate. Have you seen my ad? I've been going toe-to-toe with Governor Sununu for literally years now. And I am ready to go toe-to-toe with Kelly Ayotte. Kelly is a trained attorney. I am as well. After I graduated college, I went to work as a lab tech in a hospital. I spent 20 years working in healthcare. I then went to law school and 20 years as a healthcare attorney at Shaheen and Gordon. And I know healthcare, and I know how to debate. And I've shown I know how to debate with Governor Sununu. When he was asked on the radio, what do you think about this Democratic primary? He said, Warmington will be formidable. Now, I think that's his personal experience. But my husband was asked, why do you think the governor said that about your wife? And he said, because every once in a while, the truth just slips out of that man's mouth. The polling, trust me, the only polling that matters right now is the favorability and unfavorability polling. Every other poll, a head-to-head poll, would you vote for this person or that person, reflects nothing but name recognition. It'll show Kelly winning because she has 87% name recognition. The poll that matters right now is favorability and unfavorability. For as long as UNH has been doing that poll, no one who starts this race with a negative favorability rating has ever gone on to be governor. I am the only person in this race with a positive favorability rating, and Kelly's at a -13. What's at stake if we get Kelly? What is at stake? Okay, she spearheaded the efforts for a national abortion ban when she was a senator. She ushered Gorsuch around the Capitol to help overturn Roe v. Wade. She celebrated when Roe v. Wade fell. When she was Attorney General, she took an unconstitutional parental consent bill all the way to the Supreme Court. She argued it herself, and she lost 9-0. Kelly Ayotte is so extreme, she couldn't even get Clarence Thomas. Kelly Ayotte has already said she would continue this voucher scheme. And just to be clear, I mean, this voucher scheme's goal, fundamental goal, is to do away with public education. To jack up the cost of property taxes so high that communities say, I can't afford this anymore. And Edelbluth's right there with his alternative. Here, give your kids' parents vouchers to hand out. Take your $5,000 voucher and good luck buying your kid an adequate education with that. That's the goal. being one that buys up housing, jacks up the costs, puts people out on the street. That isn't what we need for our state. Kelly is wrong in every way for New Hampshire. But we have a choice. We have a real choice in this election. And I believe we can and we will make our state a place where every single person can love who they love, can be who they are, can make their own reproductive health care decisions. I believe we will choose to be a state where teachers can teach the truth. Amen. Where we can drink clean water.
Yes.
I believe we will choose to be a state where every single family, like mine, can afford to put a roof over their heads and feed their kids and clothe them and give them a great education and still retire with dignity. And that is not too much to ask. We will do it if we do it together, and I hope you'll join me on the journey. Questions are the best part. Please ask questions. Yes.
This is not a question. I'm a substitute teacher, and I found out recently that a boy at the school that I'm at, he's in the 8th grade, he's going to be homeschooled this coming fall. And he has told his friends that the plan his parents have is for him to have one 10-hour school day per week, and then the rest of the time he'll be working. I don't know what working means, but I resent my tax money helping them do that.
I 100% agree that this program is so bad. It is not only diverting dollars away, but there is no opportunity to monitor what is happening with these dollars, how they're being spent, or how those children are performing. And we have seen in other states that kids who leave and come back into the system later have such a huge learning loss, and we have to invest all these resources to try to catch them up, which we really can't. It is a devastating situation, one, and we just can't let it happen in our state. And education is the bedrock. Truly, public education is what gives every kid their shot at the future. And I say that as somebody who wouldn't be standing here, would never have had an opportunity to get a bachelor's of science and a master's of business administration and a law degree. Imagine that. Somebody who came from a family where no one ever even went to college. That couldn't have happened without a public education. Every kid deserves that shot at the future.
My question is with regard to education. Now, mind you, I've never had children. I've happily paid my property taxes without complaint for 30-odd years, well, 40-odd, 40-odd years, without complaint, because I believe in education and educating the next generation, because they are whose shoulders we will stand on when we can no longer really stand on our own. So I've never really had a problem with that, but I do have a problem with my First Amendment rights being violated, paying for education and religious indoctrination, which I don't care how you parse it in a bill, is still being delivered in religious institutions and in homeschooling and all of those things. Now, how is it not a violation of First Amendment rights for people to be forced by taxes to pay to educate others in faith in which they do not believe?
Yeah. Well, I will just say this, every parent can choose to send their children to whatever school they want, and that be religious or private schools, that's fine. My concern is taking taxpayer dollars to fund that. The constitutionality of that is, will work its way through the system. They, set up a bit of a device, a scheme, so that the money doesn't go directly to the schools and have avoided the First Amendment challenges thus far. Here's the real problem with public education in our state right now, is that we have 2 lawsuits that were
know, when you're a governor, I want to agree with Wayne. I think we need to send you a senator that can help you in the North Country.
Yes.
And I would just tell everyone that Rusty Talbot is running. He's a wonderful candidate, but he's not here tonight. His son is 11. It's a birthday party for his son. And I think he made the right decision. But I think we need to send you representatives, we need to send you senators, executive counselors. We need to send you people that can support your goals, and I appreciate your sharing with them tonight.
Thank you. I just want to say this. What people know about me is that on the executive council, I have shown that I know when to stand my ground. You've all seen that, right? You've seen the ads. I know when to stand my ground. I know how to stand my ground. But I also know how to find the common ground. To reach across that table and find that inch of common ground that's between us, and then work from there. But boy, would it be easier if we had some like-minded people on that executive council, in that Senate, in the House. And the number one way to make sure that we take the State House is to put the strongest person we have in the race for governor. I hope that I have earned your support and that you'll all be supporting me in this primary. And vote on September 10th. And vote again on November 5th, and let's take back the State House. Amen.
Oh, thank you, Cindy. Cindy, you and I talked about an issue a couple weeks ago that I thought was very important to understand. And I feel like people don't like to be surprised or not understand something that they hear, which is a surprise.
Yes.
So recently, and this probably isn't a surprise to people because it's become somewhat public, that recently there have been a couple articles in New Hampshire papers linking you in years past to Purdue Pharma in the early years of OxyContin in the state. And I just wondered if you would please speak to this, your history with this situation, and how it happened and how you view it now.
Sure. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Thank you. But let me just start with this. So you all heard me say that my dad struggled with alcoholism. As a child of an alcoholic, it has a profound impact on a child, on the family, and of course on the person who is addicted. I never forgot that, and when I reached adulthood, I had my own personal commitment that I was working in healthcare, but where I wanted to spend my volunteer time was in mental health and substance use disorder work. In 2000, I advocated to bring methadone treatment to our state. It was actually illegal to use methadone to treat substance use disorder in 2000, and was instrumental in getting that changed. And that opened the door for Suboxone today. Can you imagine if we didn't have that medication-assisted treatment now? I served on the board of my mental health center. I served 8 years in Laconia. I chaired that board. I served on the board of Riverbend when I moved to Concord, and 2 other treatment centers. I advocated for telehealth. I have spent a lifetime, 25 years, working to help families that suffer like mine. We have, in our next generation, in our extended family, we have people who are opioid addicted as well. I understand at a really visceral level the pain and the suffering of that. In 2002, just understand, put yourself in the Wayback Machine. I had a flip phone. I was an associate at a law firm, 2 years out of law school, and I was assigned by a partner to do a project for Purdue, wherein I advocated that it should be doctors and not insurance companies that decide when a patient gets that medication. I, at the time, and others didn't either, have any idea of the fraud that Purdue Pharma would later perpetuate, and was
get it out there, the story that your truth, that you know,
Yeah.
that you just owned it, you're saying this to us tonight, but do you foresee for your campaign and for the state to really understand the other side of what they're throwing out there? Do you foresee doing a public?
We'll see how that rolls out. I talk about it all the time. I'm happy to talk about it, or anybody asks. If anybody wants to know what Kelly Ayotte's record is, long after everyone knew what Purdue Pharma was doing, as a U.S. Senator, she took thousands and thousands of dollars from the Sackler family. As the Attorney General, she did not join the opioid lawsuit. Bipartisan, 26 states joined. Kelly Ayotte, as Attorney General, did not. To the extent Kelly Ayotte wants to criticize me for something that happened in 2002, guess who could have been sounding the alarm and telling doctors in the state that Purdue Pharma is perpetuating a fraud? How about the Attorney General, right? So I don't really think Kelly wants to go after this issue. I challenged her to a debate, or she said she would debate me on this issue. I said, fine. She didn't show. Kelly's record is not, Kelly doesn't have a record to stand on here. She knows it, and it's part of the reason that she's attacking me. Unfortunately, my Democratic opponents are parroting Kelly's attacks. Let that stand for itself.
Yeah.
Adam?
I want to say something real quick about the environment. I want to ask you a question about reproductive rights. I just want people to know, from my point of view, working so hard on the landfill and on statewide environmental, I think it's great if you have a good relationship with Robert Scott. If he's around for 2 more years, good for him. I hope you sit him down and tell him, first of all, do not break the first rule of public service, which is do not write a regulation for the specific special interest of one company. You just can't do that. And I'm going to litigate this till the end, because what they're doing offends me to my core as a former bureaucrat. Also, I think people should know that I'm a Democrat. That's what I always support. Unfortunately, I've moved to this state, and I've learned that it's the Democrats in the city of Manchester who are one of our biggest roadblocks in terms of protecting the North Country. I'm not quite sure why. I think they're falling for an extortion scheme that the company is dangling in front of them, but my visceral lack of trust with your primary opponent comes from that experience of, I don't know that she spends her days and evenings with the Manchester crowd, but I can only assume, I can only wonder what goes on in those discussions. Anyway, just wanted to say, from the point of view of a dad of a public school teacher who was conceived in vitro, that people need to understand that even if abortion doesn't affect you personally, and I thought it was wonderful the way that clip of you telling the governor, well, of course you don't care because it doesn't affect you, but that's your whole life that you don't care about things that don't affect you. But the other half of we are going to decide who must be born, who cannot, we have to prevent the maternal choice from being made. The other half of that is we're going to decide who cannot be born. And the other half of that agenda that Ayotte has supported, would have prevented my child from existing. And to me, that is, you talk about live free or die. How can you say you're from the state of freedom if that's part of your agenda? So I certainly hope you wipe the floor with that kind of
Kelly Ayotte is running away from that conversation. She's striking back on a regular basis. He's raised my Democratic opponent, and I'm careful to not go there, really. This is all I want to say about this race, is that we will win this race if we keep Kelly on abortion, public schools, affordable housing. She will lose. She will lose this race as long as we keep her feet to the fire on the issues that must all